We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, and sometimes we say the intro correctly, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cabby, and I'm joined by Cosmom09 Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Karina Davey, who you can reach on Instagram at CARINAE_D. I always have to close my eyes because I have to visualize the letters.
Yeah, it throws everybody off. It's fine.
Men are visual thinkers, I think. That's a design flaw also.
Is it though? I mean,
yeah, I guess everybody
benefits.
has their strengths.
Yeah,
exactly. We're here to talk about the 5th episode of Amazon Prime's Fallout, titled The Past.
For an episode called The Past, conspicuously, no ghoul, who is the most from the past than any of them. So
there were no flashbacks either, right?
Very short. Maximus had like little,
just the one we've seen before.
Yeah,
right. Lucy and her mom too.
Yeah,
it's just another tie-in to Fear the Walking Dead because that's what John called the dead.
Mm-hmm.
The past.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
The past. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think he called them the PASSED, right?
Thank
Rachel?
you. Okay, that's what
They never specified it though.
Well, I watched with the subtitles, so I think that's what it was.
But the subtitles are just somebody.
Sometimes they're garbage.
It's just a person doing it.
Fish bangs.
Fish bangs. Yeah. I also thought it was
the Daryl Leah
PASSED.
episode, the first time they meet, essentially. Fish. He throws a fish on her doorstep. So for Karina, because context.
Sure.
here's a fish peace offering.
Oh,
anyway.
Subtitle said
got
fish
what
bang.
You're saying.
Yeah.
See, I want you to get the joke. Francisco says the past was basically a Maximus episode because they always show that flashback of Maximus, which I don't hate, actually. I kind of like it.
I think it's like driving home that is like one of the defining moments of his life. So I think they keep repeating back to it because for him, it probably enters his mind every day. Just my thought.
And he's back to the scene. I mean, he's back where it happened.
Shady Sands, yeah. And
I hope we eventually see a continuation of that.
What, the flashback?
Or as a youth being picked up?
Okay.
Well, because we keep
scene.
seeing him coming out of the refrigerator, and then there's a robot teddy bear man. But like, what happens after that?
Robot teddy bear?
Not glossing over that.
I'm sorry.
But
it took me a second to register what you were talking about.
Robot teddy bear man.
The name escaped me for a moment. The
Brotherhood
T60.
of Steel Knight.
Yeah.
In power armor. That's actually not uninteresting because you think about everything after that point must have been miserable for him, but that's the thing that he holds on to is that image of what it could be. And isn't that everybody?
Yeah. Just loving the whole connection of Lucy and Maximus have a conversation about, she's like, oh, the bombs fell 200 years ago. And he's like, the bombs fell when I was a kid. And she's like, okay, I'm sure that's what they tell you or whatever. And he's like, you're the one who's been locked in a box underground. Like, what do you know? And so,
the earth is flat, the earth is round. Is that still a thing, you idiot?
What's going on? Yeah, like where we stand on that. But I do have information from the games about Shady Sands if anybody wants to know about it, because it's quite significant in the Fallout world. Shady Sands is only referenced in passing in the games that I've played, so mostly it's in Fallout 1 and 2. It was founded by people from Vault 15 using a GECK, which is a Garden of Eden creation kit. I don't know the year specifically it was founded, but it was elected capital of the NCR, or New California Republic, in 2198. So we have like a rough timeline based on where we're at now. It was the largest city built completely from scratch in all of the wasteland that we know about. So it didn't reuse ruins or any old materials. They built it completely from the ground up. It had a population of 3,000 in 2241, and it grew very rapidly. By 2281, it had a population of 35,000, which is astronomically
only
high.
Like 40 years?
Yeah, in 40 years, from 3,000 to 35,000.
On the billboard, it says 34,852 by, well, I don't know when the billboard was made. Sorry.
Yeah, whenever the billboard was. And then just to key in, Fallout New Vegas takes place in 2281. So it had a population of 35,000 by the time New Vegas takes place. I don't remember what the timeline is for our current people.
2296.
2281 to 2296.
2296. 28 years.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because 28 years ago was when Hank was elected overseer, by the way.
Interesting.
Lucy says that there was 320 years of American history.
Yes!
Before,
I wrote that down
yeah,
too.
that's
Dropped the
right.
first time.
Yeah.
1757. And I was looking up any significant things that may have happened that may have contributed to their timeline. And the only notable thing that I can think of is August 8th, 1757 was the fall of Fort William Henry and the massacre of the surrendered English in the French-Indian/7 Years' War.
That is the fort in the movie The Last
That's
of the
right.
Mohicans.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
When they
I
go,
read that.
and that fort does fall.
Right, exactly. It falls to the English. The English take that fort over.
It falls to the French,
Yes,
and
falls to the French,
English
right.
have to leave, right?
And it's a massacre. Well, so the original person, Webb, was the original person that commanded that fort. He decided to leave in the face of a French/Indian attack or Native American attack. He leaves somebody else in charge, basically, and says, you better surrender. You're going to be in trouble. The person that was left in charge tries to fend off attack. He requests aid from Webb. Aid never comes. It's a slaughter. And to the credit of the French person that tried to take them out, he actually tried to save as many English folks as possible from the wrath of the Native Americans.
Because they didn't kill everybody. Several hundreds of soldiers left.
Yeah.
But I love all that colonial and that period of time.
So what I was thinking was, what if that had gone down differently in 1757 that had contributed to an earlier adoption of American independence than 1776? Well, actually, when was the Declaration of Independence signed?
1776.
So it's opposite. So 77. So that's what I was thinking. Okay, so yeah, so maybe whatever event happened in 1757 caused, maybe this specific event, had it gone down differently, may have caused a chain reaction to American independence.
Here's something interesting tied into that. Because did you know that George Washington, in effect, started the French and Indian War?
Yeah, I loosely read about that.
This?
So if something different happened in the war, then maybe George Washington wasn't the president, and that would account for why we have a completely different history.
Or maybe he made, well, like you said in our coverage of The Ones Who Live, had he made maybe the slightly better decisions, and he, like you said, he got lucky in many instances, and we got lucky as a result as a country to even be born. Because of being lucky, we made it to independence. So maybe had he gone down a different path, the 7 Years' War may not have even occurred, and we would have had our independence sooner. However, we would have been in the Fallout universe, us in real life.
Yeah.
13 colonies united under a single star,
That's right.
which is 14 stars. Interesting to think about. I'm kind of glad that we made so many horrible mistakes.
Well, I mean,
Only from mistakes that you learn. Well, you'd think.
this is true.
Which is evident in this series, basically.
Lucy's learning quite a bit out there in the wasteland. I love
think
that she's like, I hate it
are,
here.
hopefully.
I hate it up here.
I hate it up here. Yeah.
Apparently, the New Republic does fall in New Vegas.
Everything that I have here on these notes are notes from the games. So
Okay.
I am not including notes from the show because that would be spoiler territory for later on in the
Gotcha.
season. So I'm not including that.
So that's interesting. So in the games, the New Republic still stands in 2281.
Yeah, NCR is still going in the game. New Vegas, it's a huge faction that you deal with. You can choose to side with them or not. And just in case you have not ever played the games, I'll tell you a little bit about New California Republic. It's a faction with pre-war ideals of personal liberty, rule of law, democracy, but also expansionism and imperialism. So not everybody loves them. They're not perfect and great. They tend to move into an area, try to civilize it, whether those people want to be civilized or not.
By the way, I kept perking up with every little factoid you mentioned until you got to expansion. I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to my core.
They're like, oh, wait.
Well, that's history, though, expansionism. No matter what country you're in.
From time immemorial,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah. Compared to what?
I forget what show it was because we've done so many, but maybe it was The Last of Us. But I was asking, when civilizations fall, why do we always rebuild them in the exact image
Right.
of what we had before?
Right.
Always. Some things may change, ideology may change, or the religion may change, but overall, society is the same build everywhere you go. It seems like they're doing the same thing. They're rebuilding society in exactly the same way that didn't work before, which could be why they end up getting blown up, because they couldn't make it work. They tried to do the same thing and it doesn't work.
This will tie in a lot more by the end of the episode, sort of. However, my answer is still the same. There's a biological imperative ingrained into all of us that has us tilt towards a certain direction. And for some reason, every time something happens, we do this weird course correct where we corkscrew along the same path and we end up where we started usually. I refer to it as tracks. We have this built-in track that we just can't seem to get off of. We keep tilting towards the same direction when it comes to humanity. And we always find ourselves back to old solutions that seem to have worked.
We're on loops.
Yeah.
In a sense.
That was the whole thing of Westworld, was you're on a loop and you can't change it. You're going to do the
Right.
same thing every time.
You can't break the wheel, etc. Systems. The vaults are an interesting experiment in how to break the wheel, though, because as we've said, basically, or I've said, I don't know if you guys agree, in every single episode, they're being monitored. Maybe, I don't know for sure, but it seems to be the case based on this episode more than previous episodes that Vault 31 has always elected an overseer. Every overseer for the last 220 probably years, but at least 220 years, according to Norm's Intervault archive. Mm-hmm. All the overseers in Vault 33 and 32, by the way, which is confirmed, have come from Vault 31. And I noticed in this episode something that one of you guys had said. I can't remember who. I think it might have been Rachel or you, Sharon D. Most of the folks in Vault 33 seem to be of a docile variety in relation to inbreeding. And I'm not 100% sure you're wrong now. I thought, okay, they've handled the inbreeding but I think it's not inbreeding necessarily. They seem docile because I think they're engineered that way. And the only outliers seem to be the folks who've come in from Vault 31. Norm is very curious. Chet is not. Lucy's very curious. Davy is not.
It's them Tatoes.
Potatoes. Yeah, like that. Taters.
Yeah.
Taters.
What's taters, precious?
Betty just goes, what's taters, precious? That would have freaked me out.
They're also docile because they've had no challenges. It's like when you have a disease, you have to build up resistance to it. You have to strengthen your immune system against that disease. Well, they've had no disease in there to strengthen them. Everything is just kind of given to them.
Yeah.
Lucy said.
Right. They have to work in the farm and they have to do their jobs and everything. But on the whole, they don't have to go out and fight battles. Mm-mm. They don't have to worry about starving, really.
And if people die, we're not going after others for revenge. You saw what happened at the end of that attack in 33.
Mm-hmm. So they've had nothing to make them not be docile.
Yes, but if this is planned by design, because we're seeing the differences in Norm and Lucy in that line, because remember, Hank came from Vault 31 and he had children, and his children seem to be very inquisitive. I am loving Norm in this episode. He is finally
Norm for the win.
He finally does not lack enthusiasm.
No, yeah.
And I'm so proud of that kid. I mean, kid, he's probably 30, but
right.
Is he younger or is he older than Lucy? Because Lucy's
I think he's
probably
younger
a confirmed
than Lucy.
I think, it seems like he is.
It seems like Lucy is 28, maybe, because he comes in from 31 using the transfer. He's overseer for 28 years.
Speaking of ages, how old is Titus? Because if he was 5 when the bombs dropped in 28 years ago, then he's supposed to be 33 years old.
Maximus?
Maximus,
well,
yeah.
Fake
Titus. I say Titus.
Oh.
It's
Fake
easy
Titus.
to confuse. Yeah. Fake Titus, actual Maximus.
Yeah.
You had said 2281 was the last known date of, because of Fallout 76, right? Or no, sorry, Fallout New Vegas, right?
Fallout New Vegas, yeah. That's when Fallout New Vegas happens. And of course, the show is taking place some 10 years after the events of Fallout 4, which is after New Vegas. So dates are not
Fallout 4 is after New Vegas. Okay,
yes,
fine. Okay, gotcha.
I'm sorry, I have to show y'all something real quick.
Oh, you made a vault. Okay, explain what you just did.
This is my mom.
He's got his thumb out.
Yeah, my mom made a Vault Boy.
That's so cute.
That's awesome.
I love it.
And what is the new name for your social media account for all the knitted designs?
The Crochet Witch. Yeah, that was my mom's choice, by the way.
All right, and if you want a Vault Boy, well, first of all, it's ko-fi.com/blazygardner0150.
Right, you can contact me there, or you can DM me, Blazy Gardner, on all the social medias. She's on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and you can go anywhere there. She's the Crochet Witch. I'm going to have her make a couple of these to take to camp, so they will be available at camp as well. Woo! I'm going to have her make a Lucy, too. She does commissions.
Francisco is really enjoying this. He says, okay, that's adorable.
Yes.
He says also, Norman really wants to finish the game, and Lucy's still on the side quest.
Yeah. Norman
Totally
is the only
accurate.
one hanging out in the main quest. He's the only one staying on task. But he doesn't have anything else to do in the vault, so it's not really his fault.
I mean, technically, it is a side quest in terms of the vaults, right? Because the main quest is occupying the next vault or whatever.
It doesn't take that long to feed the prisoners.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's his main quest.
That he's unenthusiastic about.
Right.
Lacks enthusiasm for.
We have an abundance of enthusiasm when it comes to the side quests.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'd had more enthusiasm if they'd showed him their butthole.
Wow. Okay.
He's a little more clever than that. He'd show him his belly button. Tying in the idea of why do we fall back into the same tracks? Why did Shady Sands follow the same formula that America or any other civilization really, but all the trappings of America of freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness, but plus some of the ugly side of it back to the original America, which was expansionism, colonization, etc. So why do we fall into the same tracks? So wait, what if the vaults are a redo, an engineered society that was planned to break the wheel and maybe in service of the Enclave, which I don't know if I should bring this up now, but I had a couple of thoughts on the Enclave since we last recorded, which was episode 4, which I don't remember our entire conversation about. But Enclave implies not one person, but a group of people. We're on the same page?
Yes.
And I always attributed the Enclave to Vault Tech. But if I'm really thinking about what you said, Karina, about really pre-war was a lot of monopolies. It was capitalism unfettered, unregulated, let's say, or unbroken. And you had a bunch of recognizable brands like Robco, which handles a lot of electronics, Vault Tech, which handles the vaults, and maybe a couple of other things. Or they had a couple of Vault Tech products like Plan D, all related to like Apocalypse Matters, essentially.
Yeah.
Yum Yum Brands, which was the deviled eggs, the box deviled eggs. Cram, which is, do we remember who that's made by?
I would have to see a screenshot of the actual package. I don't recall if it's a specific brand. It's just Cram.
Hormel.
Not Cram.
That's our world.
Spelled with a W. Damn it.
It's made from worms.
Have I been spelling it wrong?
Anyway, Hormel. Yeah, I gotcha. But I'm just thinking that what if...
Hormel.
That's what she was saying.
I know, but the way you said it.
Now you know how I feel when I see you suddenly come to a realization of
Oh my God.
Anyway, listen, let's shake hands. Good play. Good play. I remember saying this in the last episode that it wasn't all these different countries that dropped the bomb. It was Vault-Tec, I said. But now I'm thinking, what if all these companies came together and decided to accelerate things, to give the world a little nudge to go into nuclear apocalypse just to enrich Vault-Tec, which would, as a result, enrich all these other companies that would build appliances for the vaults, preserve products for the vaults, all these things for the vaults, a planned consumer crowd, a captured audience that would be benefiting from these products from this point forward.
It's very in line with the kind of thinking that these corporations would have in this kind of Fallout world. I like your theory.
Quick question.
This is you right now. It's like, I like your theory.
I like a theory.
Won't say anything else. You're really good at this. You're just deadpan. It's great.
She's got a poker face.
It's great.
My computer is like a little bit pixelated, so whenever I want to read your face, the pixels are like, nope. Can't look at those.
All she has to do is wave her hand over her iPad and the signal kind of goes out a little bit.
Yeah.
One more thing on the note of Poker Face, which I forgot to mention at the top of the episode, which is why I kind of went blank when I said the episode name. I was in the middle of editing the 3rd episode. And in it, I had stepped away and Bridget had, and we have to disclose this. We have to disclose this. So now that when people look at Bridget's thinking, oh, look at these great ideas Bridget has. Bridget watched the whole season. She couldn't wait. Here I am thinking she's having these original ideas. She doesn't know what's going on, just like most of the rest of us. And Karina's the only one that doesn't know. This is just like, I know everything because I need to know everything. But Bridget seems like, oh, here's an idea. I know things. No, you know it because you saw this series.
At least I informed you right after you asked me to be on the show or on the podcast that I have watched the entire series already. Does that matter?
Well, there's a utility, again, for you watching the series. So you can kind of really study up on the things that coincide with each episode and you can go back. It's kind of like the complaint that we sometimes have when there's not enough time between watch and breakdown. Sometimes you need that day to absorb the first watch and then watch it again and then you want to watch it a 3rd time for notes. Sometimes we don't always have that luxury, but you have the luxury because you saw the whole thing. You can go back re-reference things that you thought you saw before. You can re-reference things that you know will come later that makes sense for this episode. So for you, it kind of makes sense. You have this, you're the overseer of Squawk Tech. Squawking Fallout.
I like that. From Vault 31.
But Bridget, she's from Vault 31. Bridget's from Vault 31.
Okay.
She's Betty Pearson, the Betty Pearson of this podcast.
With my luck, I would be in Vault 32.
I think most of us would be, to be fair.
Which one did they leave the door open on? Because that's the one I'm in.
I don't know. I don't know which one that was.
Vault 12.
Oh, yeah.
Lucy and Maximus are talking about the Great War. And he's like, oh, the bombs dropped when I was a kid. But that's not where we saw the show start, correct? There have been two separate events.
Yes, there are two events.
Maybe more?
Maybe
At
more.
least two?
Yeah. I can say with certainty. So in Fallout 3, there is an entire town built around an unexploded nuclear bomb. So there are still nukes around. And there are also mini nukes around that you can easily acquire and shoot. The weapon that you shoot it with is called a Fat Man. So you shoot it with a Fat Man, you could easily destroy a settlement. It's not quite as powerful as a full nuke, but yeah, you could do some damage with it. There's plenty of weapons that could potentially nuke a town.
Well, it kind of goes to what he says near the end, which is it's the same thing that always happens. People have an idea of how to save the world. They just disagree on how.
Because people are on a track. They're on a loop. Humanity's in a loop. That's true of history because you see all the time civilizations rise and fall, and they rise and they fall. It's the same circle over and over again. Batman was the name of the bomb they dropped on Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, what about the fat lady? Wasn't that the fat lady sings and it's not over?
Batman was the bomb they dropped on Hiroshima, and Little Boy was the bomb they dropped on Nagasaki.
Right,
Gotcha.
but it's not over until the fat lady sings.
Right.
That's right.
Because the fat man he has to barge into the room first, and the fat lady comes in after him.
Yeah, she sings and then it's over.
Well, let's just say what Francisco says. Man, I'm loving all these theories. I'm sure Karina's enjoying it as well. I would love to discuss when you guys get to the final episode.
Yes.
whenever we get around to it.
Eventually.
The only question I have to ask as a result of that scene, because we kind of know what happened. History repeated itself. Shady Sands somehow, maybe there was a conflict, rapid growth breeds rapid division. Factions start to rise up. And this actually reflects accurately to what I'm about to say about Vault 4. And somebody explodes a nuke. Now, what I wanted to ask you, Karina, was, in your estimation, would this have been an actual nuke, or does the devastation resemble a mini nuke?
I think it's bigger than a mini nuke. I sent Rachel a mini nuke video. You remember the one with the Deathclaw? So the level of devastation is nowhere near enough to take out an entire town. But obviously not enough to take out a Deathclaw either.
The capital city of the New Republic.
I think it was terrifying.
Yeah, it's awful. It's a big part of Maximus's origin story, the destruction of Shady Sands and his subsequent rescue.
Oh, okay. So that goes with what I was asking earlier, too, about the continuation of this memory that we keep seeing.
So it doesn't ever give us new information about what happened with him during that memory, but it kind of gives context to the memory, I would say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And how we remember things maybe differently, which actually kind of goes to Lucy and her mom. So one, I wanted to get an opinion on whether her mom, Rose MacLean, actually took her outside. I thought about it for a second. We remember things differently. She even admits, oh, it must have been the Telesonic, and I could honestly feel the warmth of the sun on my skin. Lucy's Pip-Boys found outside of the vaults, even though Betty Pearson says, oh, Betty Pearson, I buried the Pip-Boy and her myself along with Hank MacLean, who happened to be both from 31. So do you think possibly that Lucy's mom took her outside?
It's possible.
I think it's possible.
I'm not looking at you, Karina.
I would drive myself crazy trying to think of why. But is it possible?
Because we don't know how she died.
Absolutely.
Too.
Or if she died.
If she died. Interesting.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Dramatic flair.
Wait, so, okay, let's assume that, right? This reminds me a little bit about, do you remember the movie, who's the guy from In Living Color? The comedian, Jim Carrey.
Truman Show.
Truman Show, thank you.
Okay.
Let me start over. Let's reset.
Okay.
Do you remember the Truman Show?
Yes.
And how when somebody alludes to the fact that this isn't real, they're kind of pulled off the show. One of his girlfriends from his youth is pulled off the show because she really wants to tell him, or she's really fangirling over the Truman guy from the Truman Show, and they pull her off the show. Like she had to go, she had to move. And so what if Rose was something similar? She's not from Vault 31. We know definitely that Hank's from Vault 31, but she might have gotten pulled out of the simulation, basically.
Maybe.
Shut up, Karina.
Fine.
So
okay,
go with
really funny at this point.
David, I think that's a solid theory because I want to go more into this, but I don't know if now is the time. But we see the dead bodies outside of the 31 thing.
Right, the intervault door from 32 to 31.
Yeah, and they're like, we know what's in here or whatever.
What was it exactly?
I think it's we know the truth.
We know
or something
what's
like that.
inside.
That was
we know
from the
what's
early.
inside.
We know what's in there. That's what
we know what's in there. Okay,
more or less.
So obviously there are dwellers from Vault 31
in 32, right?
In 33
also
32 and 33. Yeah,
right. These dwellers that are in 33 originally from 31. These dwellers obviously know what's going on inside Vault 31. They know what's going on.
Yeah, mashed potatoes are better. Taters.
Right? Yeah.
Potatoes.
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 Yeah. This is what I was thinking when I didn't actually say this. I thought I did, but I didn't. When the raid attack happens during the wedding in Vault 33, I talked about the cleanup and how everybody just kind of moved on. Because what else are you supposed to do?
What else are you going to do? Yeah.
But no sobbing or crying necessarily. People are in casts and maybe stim packs were applied, so they could move on. But their friends died.
Well, there was some grieving.
But it's weird. It's not to the extent where people's, like Betty Pearson say, people's spirits were broken. They just kind of shrugged it off-ish. They had an election.
Especially after the point Sharondy made earlier about how this doesn't happen there. So you'd think there would be a bigger shock factor.
Yeah.
And they've had famine and they've moved on. And
yeah,
it contributes to the fact that these are the docile people. But during the attack, this is what I wanted to get to. There were some people who were just utterly just standing still, more or less. Sorry, I have to describe it for the audio podcast. As they're being sliced up, some fought back, like our best friend, Stephanie, which I'm not sure she was our best friend. Maybe that was planned too. Lucy and she getting together, a half Vault 31er and a full Vault 31er. Yes, I do mean Fork Eye. Stephanie Harper has a name.
Fork Eye
Pregnant Belly has a name. Anyway,
she grieved in a particularly odd way.
She did.
That does. See, now you can reflect on that. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Considering where she's from now. And she's grieving in a way that I don't think we've seen the rest of Vault 33 grieve. Right? She actually has emotions. She's outpouring. She's a little over the top.
Somebody else was crying though too.
Seen a lot of them.
That's what I'm saying, though. You'd think you would see more feelings of devastation, of brokenness. No, they have a meeting. They have an election shortly after.
I love the guy just tell him, like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to vote for Betty.
I mean, I don't blame. But that also contributes to that docile, I'm just going to follow. I'm just going to be subordinate. I'm just going to go with the flow. Yeah. You'd think they'd have more ambition. It goes to your comment about the election. They're like, that's a great ad, Woody. Thanks, Reg McPhee.
I put up 10 posters.
A whole 10 posters.
Well, even the guy who was running ended up voting for Betty anyways. Like, who am I kidding? I'm just going to do. I'm just going to vote for her. I'm not even going to vote for myself.
So when you see people like Lucy and Norm acting curious and with interest, or maybe that was a planned thing. Maybe Norm and Lucy are also an experiment. How
Lucy
can we breed
is Frodo.
Somebody? Yeah,
because they make a big deal out of it in the beginning that Frodo was not like the other hobbits, right?
The ring is the head.
He's different.
That's where he got taters.
The ring is the head. Yeah.
Taters.
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
So is Norm Samwise Gamgee?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's more of a Merry or a Pippin.
Yeah.
Wasn't Pippin the curious one?
Yeah, exactly. It's just interesting to see how Lucy kind of ebbs back and forth between wanting to go back to the vaults, in her own way, because it's like, I hate it up here. It's just, what a promise of a brighter future.
There's a saying, though, how can you make them go back to the farm once they've seen the lights of Perry? How do you expect someone to go back to living in this quiet, uneventful, boring, and as now she knows, somewhat irrelevant vault?
Easy, though. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, she does have that moment standing in front of the crater of Shady Sands saying, we were supposed to be the ones to restart civilization, and it happened
She's like,
without us. Like,
why are we even, that's the whole point we were staying in the vault, was to repopulate the earth and redo civilization. It already happened. So now she feels irrelevant.
Yeah.
So why would she want to go back? I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't. Well, like, in her head, she wants to go back because she thinks it will feel the same to her, but it won't. When she goes back to the vault, it will not feel the same to her because she's a different person. And I can't imagine going up and having all this excitement and fighting and all this going on and then go back and sit in the vault where people are like, let's read Shakespeare and Milton.
Yeah.
But what they tried to do didn't work. So that might give her more hope.
More hope or more pause, too. I'm
trying to look at Lucy's point of view because she sees everything with rose-colored glasses. She's like, well, they tried it and it didn't work. So now they have to try it our way. Our way is going to work.
Well, she also has
maybe
the presence of mind to admit to Maximus that the vault dwellers are naive. She definitely understands that, especially now that she's gone out and seen the way the rest of the world operates.
Again, how do you go back to what the vault is, which is not real? She's learning that as she's out there.
And Norma's learning that too. Mm-hmm. See, this kind of goes to my Enclave theory, because what you said, Karina, in the first episode about the Enclave, when we talked about the target, well, the target would have been the next episode, but we knew what the target was, and that next episode was called The Target. Anyway, that the Enclave wanted to do it their way. And if what happened to Shady Sands was a result of the Enclave saying, no, you can't restart humanity, that's our job. And of course, if they're monitoring the vaults, because they actually are breeding the next generation of, our plan is the only plan. We are the last light of the world. Sorry, I'm confusing you for the Civic Republic military. But if we're the last, and this is exactly what happened in The Walking Dead World Beyond, in The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live, which is no campus colony, no Omaha, no Portland. We're about to kill you guys. We're the last light of the world. Mm-hmm. The Enclave is the last light of the world. And by the way, interestingly enough, Betty Pearson says, we're the light in the darkness. Mm-hmm. Mother effer. What? What? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with this thought, because I had a theory that I mentioned in the premiere of our third episode that I just couldn't hold back for an episode discussion. And we also recorded the fourth episode. We still haven't premiered that yet. But in it, I said, I think Betty Pearson looks awfully familiar, because what I had done was, in that episode, Sharon, you mentioned that Betty Pearson's played by Leslie Uggams. Well, what I did was I put a picture of Leslie Uggams on the screen. I put a picture of both her in the past and her in the present. Leslie Uggams looks an awful lot like Cooper Howard's wife. And then I thought, oh my God, she's been there the whole time. Betty Pearson is Cooper Howard's wife. She just won the election. She was from Vault 31, the Enclave. The subtle nod when Cooper Howard asks about the radiation suits that you had mentioned, Rachel, in that episode. And she goes, yep, radiation. Yes, yep, of course they do. They absorb radiation.
We know his wife's name yet?
We know that his daughter, Janie. Mm-hmm. Did he say Betty?
No.
Or maybe that's a pseudonym too, which doesn't even have to be real. And this goes to Francisco's comment in the chat. He says, going to mention Demolition Man, because I mentioned time travel in the premiere chat as well. I also mentioned in the episode, what if the Norm went back in time? That's Siggy Wilzig. But anyway, but he mentions, going to mention again, Demolition Man. Remember the prison where they kept all the prisoners on ice? Now you can think. And this is what we had said about, well, you had said in our chat, Karina, well, it's kind of like time travel if you were put into cryostasis for 200 years and emerged 20 years prior, let's say.
Yeah.
Which we learned in this episode, Betty Pearson was also well, it's in the archive records, but I think it's in there now because she just became overseer. But however, I'm thinking they planned for Betty Pearson to be an overseer ahead of time.
Well, they also mentioned at the election she'd already been an overseer before.
Is it though? Because we didn't see the dates. That's the thing.
I don't know if what he was looking at was the current election result or if it was the previous one.
Let's think about it, guys.
So are you saying...
Let me go through the list because I wrote them all down, bitches. Okay, a record of all communication trade between Vaults 31, 32, 33. There's a list of goods, money, personnel, entertainment, other. He chooses personnel. right? Because personnel trade. The following is a record of intervault trades implemented of the distribution of personnel. Let's go through the list. It is in chronological order. Robert Olson, 31 to 33, elected overseer, 2101 to 2109, a reign of 8 years. Ava West, who is an actual person, isn't it? Ava West sounds familiar. She's an actor. Nobody knows?
Adam West? Are you thinking Adam West?
Ava West.
I know, but Adam West is
I thought at least Sharon would have looked up Ava West. She's an actual actress. Anyway, let's just skip over that. Maybe we'll go back to that. 31 to 33 again. It's all 31 to 33. Elected overseer 2109 to 2121. Georgia Yaffe, 31 to 33. Elected overseer 2121 to 2125. 4 years. The pattern repeats. Someone is always transferred from 31 to 33 and is elected overseer for the last 200 years, maybe even the full 219 years since the Great War. This is my notes. We skip from that to Hank McLean, 2271 to 2297. Now, if we're going in order and Norm is zipping through all the results from the beginning of overseer elections, the next entry is Betty Pearson. So it was planned. And if you go along the lines of the docile nature of Vault 33, Woody and Reg had no chance of winning. The ballots were rigged.
But the one guy said she had already been overseer.
Yeah, he did.
Right.
Who did?
So
Shakespeare guy.
Yeah.
The one who was like admitting to Davy that I'm going to vote for Betty, like for all these reasons, and like plus she's already been overseer.
Plus she's already been overseer.
Which could have been of 32. She might have been overseer of 32
as well. Yeah.
I don't know that it ever specifies what vault she was overseer of previous to 33.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, it's like the one time you want Davy to be brutally honest. What I wrote was not brutally honest, but brutally apologetic. This weird mix of bless your heart, but can we still be friends?
I had another question about these records because it says 31 to 33 elected overseer and then the person's name and their reign. Were these people sent from 31 just to be overseer? Were they already there and they happened to get elected? I don't understand the...
Yes, they were transferred
details.
And eventually became overseer.
Yeah.
But really, the end of the story is what we're to assume is that it was all planned because of the consistency of the personnel transfers.
So
never is a person from 33 overseer of 33.
Okay.
It's always 31.
Right. I understand that. Let's say it was an arrangement like Lucy's where somebody they got married, someone from 31 came over to 33, and then eventually they were made overseer. It wasn't that they were brought from 31 to be overseer. They were elected by Vault 33.
Well, from Vault 33's perspective,
I'm not talking about the masterminds pulling the strings. I'm talking about the dwellers themselves.
Yeah. These are just personnel transfers.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I understand that there's a grand master plan going on.
Yeah.
But as far
when
as
he's
the
looking
people
through the archives,
in the vaults are
he's
considered,
just looking at personnel transfers as it relates to 3133. It just so happens to be as a note elected overseer from these dates.
Also, you said a whole lot of words earlier, but you didn't come out and say what I started thinking as you were talking, that Vault 31 is just a giant cryo tank. There are no people living there. They're just in cryo tanks.
Well, okay, so what Francisco is saying is that I'm not saying that they're necessarily criminals in 31.
Oh no,
I'm not ready to because I don't know. I don't have that much information.
Like an Australia
that would make
situation,
Hank a criminal too.
No, I don't think they're criminals. I just think the people in Vault 31 are essentially frozen.
It's a possibility from the standpoint of Fallout 4. Vault 101 is a cryo vault. There's no people living there like the way 33 and 32 had. It's just people in cryostasis. So that's canonical. That can happen. Yeah.
So maybe that's to your point, Rachel. So maybe
I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but that's what
that's sort of what I'm getting at.
Going
is that
through my head.
Yeah, people from that vault come out of cryostasis. I'm sure there is a generation behind that has to maintain that. Maybe Betty Pearson was one of the people that maintained that particular vault and those cryopods, let's say.
Could just be one person. I mean,
not for 220 years, but they have to find somebody else to pull out of stasis.
Let me rephrase. One person at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
At a time.
Or a crew. Again, really the point is that to what end? Is this how it was planned? Is 31 always going to be the anachronisms, the people that were held in cryostasis that had the luxury of knowing what the before times? You transplant them to here to continue the mission, to keep people on task. And you breed a population that just follows orders.
Well, you would think those people would know that the Earth is not flat.
That was so funny.
That
was so funny.
Just a little dig at Maximus. What else does a brother tell you? The Earth is flat. What's the ruling on that?
A little slap at the flat earthers out there. That was hilarious.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Boy.
Where to stand on that lately?
I really, really, really love the humor in this show. They make it funny. I laughed out loud several times, and I don't usually do that when I'm watching television.
Potatoes.
I want to mention that. So potatoes are a common food item that you can
freaking
grow.
knew it. I freaking knew it. The second
Potatoes
it came out of their
real.
mouths, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
potatoes. That's an actual
Potatoes.
name of the thing that Karina's going to say something about.
It is actually.
So frustrating.
It's a potato-tomato hybrid, which I would be
Ew.
very interested in knowing what that tastes like.
A
It
starchy
sounds
tomato
really gross.
Yeah.
or a
it
juicy
looks like-
potato.
Maybe. It looks like a tomato, like a lumpy tomato on the vine, and they're called potatoes. And
That
I'm
just
like,
makes me
I
think
always
of tobacco from The Simpsons when they cross tomato and
Simpsons.
tobacco.
Tobacco.
horrible.
This was a
Gross.
mistake.
I'd always assumed that was a result of nuclear mutation, and that's something that grows in the wasteland. But the fact that the vault dwellers have potatoes suggests that it was a purposeful genetic splicing that happened.
A little nod to the fans too.
Yeah.
At least.
I thought they literally just weren't calling them potato. I'm like,
No,
do
they're
they just
potatoes.
call them potatoes now?
Potatoes. Yeah, no, they're tomato potatoes.
That's just the genius of sneaking that in. People
Yeah,
who
it's
like a
don't
whole
know.
other,
We like
a whole new thing.
It's a thing, yeah. It's like
Yeah,
a weird
it's a
hybrid.
thing.
I'm still curious. What would that be like? Is it a
Ugh,
juicy
sounds
potato?
horrible.
That's
Or is
a
it
disgusting.
starchy tomato.
A starchy tomato, or is that the same thing? I don't know.
Either way, it would be really gross.
Does it have seeds inside? Or
Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, it's on the outside,
It's
like
I
the
don't
eyes
know.
of the potato. Anyway,
Ugh.
actually, you know what? That actually does bring us back to the new California Republic, because the flag is a two-headed bear, which I was
It is.
trying to remember the name of the bear. Humboldt, the Humboldt honey bear. I was struggling before, and I was writing in my notes like, what is that? Anyway, but yes, a little factoid that I found out recently leading into the series, as before we even got on to record the first episode, was that they were talking about this on the Joe Rogan podcast, that at one point recently, the veteran submitted a flag that was made out of hemp, and people were all up in arms about that. But then I read recently a service member had also done the same for the Californian flag, the Humboldt bear flag. It resembles very much the California state flag with the bear on it. However, the flag that they submitted to the state legislature was the California New Republic version with the two heads.
It's a two-headed bear.
And it caused an uproar. And I
Oh
will
my
link that
gosh.
article to the blog, because it
That's
is
hilarious.
hilarious what people will sneak in
Yes.
to the United States government.
I love that.
Okay, I have
love it so
a
much.
fun story about that. I want to say it's New Hampshire, but I could be wrong. But it has a cow on their state seal. Prisoners designed it. Inside the picture of the cow is a picture of a pig.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
Yeah,
Michael,
it's great.
MFer. Wow.
Wow.
Again, the things that people sneak in.
Yep.
Wow. Let's say things that Francisco said, because
Yeah.
this will kill time. And also, we love Francisco. He said, I laughed when she said the vaults were the best place in the world. Laughing, not even emoji, laughing emoticon.
Yeah.
Enclave just wants a piece of the pie. That's what they want. That's an emoji, eyes looking sideways. It was planned, and you will find out more soon. Yeah, I had a feeling. He says, thanks. I'm going to cook some potatoes tomorrow with some Deathclaw ribs.
Oh yeah.
Seems like they do go together. Yeah.
Yaogway ribs. Deathclaw steaks.
I was surprised that the California New Republic wasn't a Yaguai, but instead a two-headed rad bear. An actual rad bear.
Two-headed humble bear.
Let me go back to something that I did kind of recall before, but this was before the show, because you guys got very eager to talk about
Yes.
Maximus being locked in his suit.
Yes.
And I remember, Sharon,
Oh, wow.
you had said in the episode we just premiered, episode 3, that it doesn't feel claustrophobic. It feels perfectly okay. He feels safe. That's you know,
Yeah.
the implication that why did it feel claustrophobic on Fear the Walking Dead season 7 when Dwight and Sherry were in their gas masks? And it didn't feel like that with Maximus. But in this episode, did you think differently once he was trapped in the suit?
What I was referring to in that episode was how weird it felt watching them. And I think I figured it out is because in that, all you could see was their eyes. In this, you can see his face. What I mainly thought was that's a terrible design flaw that you can just reach behind him and jerk his nuclear power fission
His fusion
thing
core.
out. And,
Well, he had a key. He needed a key to do it.
Key.
And I do remember that Rachel said that when he first got in the suit, that she felt like that
Rachel was the one who was claustrophobic.
Like,
what if you couldn't get out? We're calling what Rachel
if you get
said.
Stuck. It's as soon as I heard you say that, as soon as I heard you say that, I was like, oh, she's gonna love it when he actually does get stuck in there.
Did you feel it this episode?
Oh, for sure.
Same.
I would have done the exact same thing if I were...
Start screaming?
No, if I were Thaddeus, I'd be like, see ya.
Wouldn't want to be literally.
Yeah.
He's got stalked.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's hover
here. But I
here.
was freaking out, yes.
Yeah, same here. But there's a lot going on in the scene.
Yeah.
He thought he could trust Thaddeus based on their mutual bond and climbing over adversity, getting the head from the gulper and everything.
Big
and I
mistake.
felt that. Right. But didn't you feel just prior to that? You really, see, this is why I wanted to press you, because I ask everybody, do you think Maximus's reaction to Thaddeus's reaction, he just goes straight to killing? And he does this again at the end of the episode when it comes to the fiends, which we can discuss that separately. But I immediately thought of Rachel. Oh yeah, Rachel would say kill him before he gets found out. Right. But what did you guys feel when you saw that? Do you feel like this goes in line with this middle ground? Killing isn't all that important if it goes against his goals?
Coming from a standpoint of, if I were Thaddeus, all of this bonding that's happening is predicated on a lie. And that's probably what Thaddeus was thinking of. Now he feels betrayed because Maximus has been lying to him from the very beginning. He branded him knowing that he wasn't Knight Titus. And he could have said something moments before. He could have been like, hey, I got to tell you something before we go back, before we do this whole branding thing. No, he chose to brand him first and then open up about it. I don't blame Thaddeus for doing what he did. And basically his response was, the Brotherhood's going to kill you. And he's like, oh, they don't have to find out. He's like, they're going to find out.
I felt like he could have explained things better too. Like if he explained to him the situation, maybe he wouldn't have.
I think Maximus dropped the ball on the interaction, and then basically, in game terms, he failed a bunch of persuasion checks, and then his last resort was to kill the guy because now he's hostile. So that's what happened.
Great explanation of in game terms how that makes more sense.
Yeah,
he panicked.
Yeah, he panicked. Yeah, I don't think Maximus did the right thing in the moment, but he may have been backed into a corner thinking as a gamer. Sometimes you mess up. You didn't want to get into a fight with the guy. You didn't want to have to kill him. But now this is the only course of action you have left because you failed all of your saving throws or whatever the case, your persuasion checks.
That's so funny. Just thinking about it in those terms.
Maximus made it seem like Titus died. He didn't explain it any further.
He could have, right?
He's dead.
He doesn't have Riz.
No Riz.
He's allowing Thaddeus to think that he killed Titus instead of him just dying.
He died.
Right, because what else is he supposed to think?
But technically he did kill him because he could have saved him and given him a stim pack and he would have lived.
That's true.
Which is the point I was going to make.
He let him die. That's different than killing someone.
Well,
I mean,
that's actually interesting.
A little bit. A
Slightly.
little bit different.
You Maximus cuck, Okay. Sorry. What is it? That's not what it's called. Is it Maximus apologist? Is that what that's what you are?
Cuck is a very different thing, Dave.
Same thing. Anyway. Maximus simp. You're a simp. Maximus simp. Simping for Maximus. That should be the name of a movie. Simping. Anyway.
So if your fusion core is removed in the game, say you get pickpocketed or whatever, and they can take the fusion core out, you would immediately get ejected from the suit. So you would not get locked in it. Also, your fusion core can run out of charge as well, and the same thing will happen. You'll just immediately get ejected if you don't have another fusion core to replace it. So him getting stuck in the suit is very much a show thing and not a game thing.
I'm okay with that.
That makes a lot more sense, that the suit would just open up and spit you out instead of being locked in there.
It's a cheat because in Fallout 4 you can collect suits and leave them at different settlements, and if your settlement gets attacked by raiders or creatures or whatever, the NPCs will immediately use whatever's at their disposal to defend the settlement, and that could also be power armor, but then they don't ever get out of the power armor afterwards. So if you want to use your power armor, you have to pickpocket the fusion core out of it, and then it'll spit them out. So then
spit the NPCs out.
Yeah, it'll force them out of the power armor, which I did not learn that until 2 weeks ago. So I just found that out.
The game keeps teaching me things all the time. Or the
I
show,
kept thinking
actually.
I don't want to leave my power armor someplace where I have NPCs at a settlement because they're just going to take it and then I can't get them to get out of it afterwards. But I didn't know you could just take their fusion core away. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like,
What makes it a lot scarier for the show. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, to stay on that point just a little bit longer, it does fall in line with what he does in the second episode, which is letting Titus die. So he's willing to do the same to Thaddeus, in spite of their bond, their actual bonding. And I even wrote in my notes, this is probably the closest he's ever come to having an actual brother, which I don't blame him.
Or even a friend.
Or an actual friend, like a real friend.
Yeah.
Well, no, Dane was his friend.
I was going to say outside of Dane, right?
Yeah.
This also makes me think of, and I wanted to go back to this also, seeing that scene of him coming out of the milk bottle refrigerator and seeing the end credit scene with Shady Sands Elementary School, knowing that he went to that probably because it was about the same age. Just thinking to myself, doesn't he remember anything prior to the Brotherhood picking him up? Couldn't he? Will he remember his name? I just wonder about that for a hot sec.
Yeah, that's curious. He never mentions living in Shady Sands. He only mentions or refers to or has this flashback of that moment of being saved. Nothing previous to that.
Post his nuke fallout situation.
I mean, PTSD.
Well, he is truly...
And he was little.
He was pretty young. I would say maybe 5 or 6. So sometimes your memory is cloudy from back then anyway. And if you have this wildly traumatic event happen, maybe he doesn't remember anything from before that moment.
In 2281, maybe, possibly.
Maybe.
Well, he is truly grateful to the Brotherhood for picking him up. I don't feel like he holds any resentment towards the Brotherhood. He really is trying to do the right thing. I think more than whether or not he remembers, he doesn't want to. I think he feels grateful for this new life and has embraced it. So maybe he does remember and he's just like, that's not who I am anymore. I'm part of this group now and this is who I want to be. This is
who I could be, like the Knights.
This is who I am. Yeah.
That would explain how he has, because we were talking in one of the episodes about he's been raised in this wasteland. How does he have these honorable feelings and emotions? Right. How does he have these values?
Moral compass.
But if he was raised by parents in Shady Sands, they could have instilled values in him that even though he doesn't remember specifics, that is still in him.
That's the answer to the question I had in the third episode when I had said, how does he know about heroes and knights and actual knights from days of yore or the mythical version of the thing that we learn are heroes from the medieval times? Oh, it's great to be a knight. No, it's not. You kill a lot of people. But that answers that question because he was of a certain age where he could have read or had stories read to him. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. That makes me feel a little bit better about his perceptions of the Brotherhood of Steel and the knights therein. Fine. Francisco says, has anyone seen videos of the actor who plays Thaddeus on IG, Johnny Pemberton? I think he's playing the character in real life. Which, by the way, in our premiere of episode 3, we actually put on the snippet Bridget was talking about of his character Bo on Superstore saying, I'd live in a future with my friend's a robot. I live with a murder gang. I'm head of a murder gang. So I actually played the clip, and I'm going to include the link, obviously attribution to the many people who posted that on TikTok, I guess.
Yeah.
In different ways.
It's been making the rounds.
Yeah, the one I chose was only 14 seconds long, so that helps. As opposed to like 1 minute, 14 seconds, which is like, okay, wrap it up. Okay, Glenn? Well, okay then. Anyway, whatever. It's really, really odd because how did we mention in the same episode the crushing your head thing? And it's the same actor who plays Glenn on Superstore too, by the way. From the Kids in the Hall skit with the crushing head. That's the same actor as Glenn from Superstore.
Oh, wow.
Weird coincidence that we did that.
Yeah. Crushing our head.
Which I also included a clip of in case you weren't there for the premiere.
Yeah.
Wow. Synchronicity. Lucy knows about the 260 armor.
I thought that was
knowledge of history.
Yeah, I was so thrilled to watch that interaction because she has an interest in it the way Maximus has interest in it. And she even mentioned the tempered lining and everything too, just like he did. So he must be all aflutter, like, this girl likes what I like.
And it dovetails nicely to what they talk about later on, which is finally getting the full deets on the Brotherhood of Steel. We got it from Karina, which arguably should we have? who gives a Schneider's stuff? Because
I don't think it was that big of a spoiler.
Yeah, not really. But it's interesting to note that the power armor is actually pre-war technology. It was used in the Battle of Anchorage. Anchorage as a
Battle of Anchorage
city was brought up in the first episode in the news report.
Mm-hmm.
The meeting with Khrushchev failed in Anchorage, and that's what supposedly led to the nukes. I'm not convinced. I'm a conspiracy theorist now for this new reality. It was Vault-Tec all along. It was the enclave of corporations. Wow, I sound insane.
But not so much from a game lore standpoint. You're very in on what is very possible.
But out of context,
yeah,
I sound like a lunatic. This power armor is pre-war technology. The Brotherhood uses pre-war technology to obtain pre-war technology, and in many instances uses it to commit to violence upon the peoples to get it.
Keep more pre-war technology out of everyone's hands. So for what end?
You would think that was something that was made up post-apocalypse, but it's just a pre-war deal. So it's a good note. That has persisted for the last 220 years, essentially. I'm
slightly reluctant to admit there is a DLC or downloadable content for Fallout 3 where you can participate in the Battle of Anchorage.
What?
Yes, through like a virtual kind of thing, because obviously this happened quite a long time ago.
Like a simulation.
I have not played it, so I do not know the specifics, but it is something that is playable in the game. So
I wouldn't have even thought to search, to be honest with you. Honestly,
I could probably look up what it involves and what it entails, but I've never played it because I was me understanding what a lot of DLC is. I didn't have internet access to my console for the longest time. I do now because who doesn't? But back then, no, I didn't.
There's so much content anyway.
Yeah,
DLC just throws another wrench in our completionism brains, and it's like, why would I do that to myself? It's like, thank you, Todd Howard. May I have
Thanks,
another?
Todd.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Todd.
So we can wander here too, because Francisco says that moment in the bridge was sponsored by Colgate because of the fiend's teeth.
Nah. Funny.
I want to mention this bit, and we can go back to the whole scene. As they're passing by the fiends on the bridge, did you not notice that she actually has a name in the subtitles? Rika or Javin and Rink is the name of the woman who passes them by. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that she kind of had a resemblance to Lucy in a sense? She had kind of big eyes, even though they were kind of hollowed out-ish and reddish. I thought she looked more like the
ghoul with the way her eyes were sunken, and she was just pale instead of burnt.
I felt like that was a weird, interesting mirror as they passed. It was just notably long. Yes, it does hover over to Lucy's Pip-Boy because she's thinking, oh, she's a Vaulty? That's a snack. I don't have to suffer radiation as a result of eating this. But I was just thinking, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that maybe this was a dark mirror? Had she not been in the vaults, she would have been just like her, in a sense.
I didn't go that deep. I will agree that I thought her eyes were unusually large.
Right. So that passing resemblance. I just thought that was an interesting moment. She's had moments like this in every episode where she says it to the ghoul. I may turn out like you, but I'll never be you. I may end up looking like you, but I'll never be you. Well, it makes you wonder what will happen to her character. Now, we have to mention, because we almost forgot, that she does end up getting the Radix from Maximus, from Maximus's suit.
The Radaway.
We don't, exactly.
Radaway, yeah.
Which we don't have to worry about her turning to a ghoul anytime soon. But going back to the fiend scene, I wanted to ask Rachel, were you on Maximus's side? Wanting to kill them before they kill you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what everybody thought about that, because it's a very interesting question to ask, because I do the Rick Grimes Stan simp in me admires the fact, even though you may think he's wrong, and maybe that's one of the many wrong things Rick does in The Walking Dead. I admire the idea of, well, if she purports to be the person that's gonna fix the overworld, the wasteland, practice what you preach, give people a chance. Maybe it doesn't have to be this way. I admire that. But Rachel's like, you just gotta kill him. I'm gonna kill you.
I admire her values, but sometimes you have to let your values go to survive. Yeah, we're gonna pass you right by, and maybe you'll eat us, and maybe you won't.
I appreciate what she was trying to do, but I would also be on Maximus's idea, like,
give me a gun. Give me a gun. Give me a gun now.
Yeah.
Give it a gun.
Yeah.
How patriarchal. Really? Come on now. Let me just read what Francisca wrote. She was Lucy after she read Berserk manga. laughing emoticon, question her existence and eat people. So he's referring to Rink, the
Is
fiend.
that what XD? Is that what XD? What is
that's him laughing. It's the laughing. Remember the laughing
like,
emoji with the X?
Yeah, it's like
eyes? Yeah.
XI emoticon.
I appreciate emoticons. I used to use them a lot. I was like the last holdout for emojis.
For the longest time, I thought it meant well done, right? Because I worked in a restaurant, and that is the shorthand if you want to get a steak well done. It's XD. So whenever somebody put that, I thought they were saying like "good job," you know. And then I realized eventually what it was.
Oh my
like,
God.
yikes! You know what? Maybe that's what Rink was thinking. The fiend, female
well
fiend.
done. Yeah.
I would love Lucy. Well done.
Well done.
I have a couple things to add to this entire scene. So when you mentioned a resemblance to Lucy, that's not who I thought she looked like. There's a character in the games named Cricket. She looks almost exactly like Cricket. She's a merchant in Fallout 4. She's Kim addicted, so she's strung out, basically. That's what the sunken in eyes look like to me. It's interesting. There's quite a disconnect with what Maximus calls them versus what my experience was in the game. So let me just break it down a little bit. When he said she's a fiend, fiends are a Kim addicted raider group from New Vegas.
Okay.
And they are relatively close to the New Vegas area because we know that Shady Sands, I didn't mention this earlier, but Shady Sands is somewhat northwest of New Vegas. So they are in the vicinity of New Vegas area, California area.
That guy looked like somebody who just came from Vegas.
yeah, he did. He did. When he said they're fiends, I was like, oh, it's a raider group. Okay, that makes sense. That jives. And then he's like, they're people who eat people. I don't recall that being a feature of that particular raider group. Now, he could have been referring to her complexion or something that, the teeth or whatever else, or the type
Francisco
of weapons
mentioned.
that she had. Yeah, like he could have been noticing that because there are some physical attributes to people who partake in cannibalism in the games. You can get uncontrollable shakes. It's not good for you, that kind of thing. There is a group called the White Glove Society that is a group of cannibals in New Vegas. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I don't think they're part of it. The White Glove Society definitely is more of that like upscale
Sounds
1%er
fancy.
kind of group,
Right. They use a knife and fork when they dig in. They don't just go,
Exactly. They're all over the place in the games. In Fallout 76, cannibals become wendigos, like literal skinny, tall creatures.
Lanky.
So they become, they become like this sort of
hairless. Probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I haven't seen them because I haven't played that game. So the cannibals are a thing that kind of show up throughout the games. You can get up a cannibalism perk, which I never take because gross.
Ew.
Just like the explodey perk. What was it called?
Yeah, the bloody mess. Yeah,
Bloody mess, right.
Bloody mess. There's a perk you can take. I think it gives you resistance to like the negative effects of cannibalism. So you can eat the item strange meat without having bad effects that'll affect your ability to aim because you'll be shaking and trying to aim and shake and it doesn't work.
So it's like you have the option if you really want to.
Yes. And it's actually an option that exists in other Bethesda games as well. So it's in Skyrim as well. You can take a certain quest line that will lead you to the ability to be able to do that. It's weird.
Without negative consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Without negative consequences. Except for the fact that you're ostracized from society if anybody sees you doing it.
So without negative consequences.
Yeah. Well, without all that. It seemed like it was a amalgamation or a meshing of all those different things that I recognized from the game in this one character, or in this one moment.
I think
so
that's
that was kind
fair,
of interesting.
Actually. I mean, to boil it all down, because why get enmeshed in the nuance? Yeah, just put it all in one character. It's kind of like
a fiend. People who eat people. Very simple.
It's just why get complicated? Why? But maybe to your point, this also could be an example of Maximus's, I'm not saying lack of knowledge when it comes to history, but it just doesn't seem that anything beyond the study of pre-war technology is of the Brotherhood's concern.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn about knights of the medieval times. You're not going to learn about politics and history and trying to learn from it and trying to do better. No, let's just keep the pre-war technology, the thing that caused all things, away from people so that we don't make the same mistake again. Yeah. Probably is the reason why they do what they do. And maybe that reason has been lost to time and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe we just stuck in our loops. because an original first mover set that in motion and didn't provide a manual on why we do what we do. Because that's what loops are. To go back to the tracks thing, it's probably why we go back to things that worked, things that kept us always on track. I'm going to say this. It has to do with unintended consequences. When it comes to politics, the second you try something else, you end up creating more complication. And so sometimes it's best to leave things the way they are, the way things work. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong thing, but it's like a bad game of Jenga. You're just putting it up here so that we have to deal with another new consequence later. And so it's a line of political thinking that if you keep messing with the system that's already broken, you might end up making it more broken in a new and complicated way. Thomas Sowell, he writes extensively about this. Talking about a guy who was originally a Marxist and then emerged from that, seeing the ills of society, seeing the rot that those unintended consequences had on Black communities. Good intentions, possibly, maybe, or maybe malintentions injected into good intentions, ruining Black communities. And what his thing was, not only what the government tried to do to suppress Black communities in the name of helping Black communities, but he was like saying how the more you think about it, the more you try to add layers and layers of complexity and laws to try to fix different wrongs, you end up making more problems that you have to fix later. You're just pushing the can down the road and in creating more complex things you have to solve later on when you do that. So let's talk about Vault 4, because like Silas, your son, Rachel, said, he saw the reflection of the suits that was just paying very close attention to, among other things like the greenery in Vault 4, which they end up, and just to give a little context, that's where Lucy and Maximus end up at the end of this episode. It is a vault that for some reason takes in folks from the outside world. It's a very big vault, it seems, because there's multiple floors. There's greenery on the outsides. It's growing on the walls. It seems to be the Garden of Eden. And that is not a mistake because, according to my research from falloutfanfic.fandom.com, let's start from the beginning. Vault 4 was to serve as a variation on the experiment of Vault 108, which I don't know anything about. I didn't have time to research that. But without any controlling influence, we talk a lot about the controlling influence of Vault 31, at the very least, on 32 and 33. This is the exact opposite. Its intention, Vault 4's intention, was no overseers, no control. Let the experiment run. Let's see if people will end up doing or living up to the actual intended promise of the vaults on their own. Another cruel vault tech experiment in the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Well, we'll have influence on this vault, this vault, this vault, this vault. Well, let's see what would happen if we didn't have any influence. No resident entered the vault with a set responsibility. So there's no set engineers, no jobs for people to do, or people assigned jobs. There's no overseer. The vault was to test how civilization might come from total anarchy. 220 years ago, a figure named Craig MacDonald united all the vault's factions. So like right from the start, he set up a police state, essentially. All the defeated leaders from those factions were exiled out of the vaults and obviously killed immediately because this was shortly after the bombs fell. Police state was established for the next 30 years. It was basically McCarthyism reborn. So like we went from one McCarthyism to another McCarthyism, except with the police state element. After 30 years, MacDonald basically tried to set up scouting missions for the outside world, but with the intention of rooting out people who were trying to escape his police state rule. He anticipated this and murdered 54 people from the vaults. Now, this was the beginning of the end for him because he killed so many people. It ended up in an uprising. So the security chief, Raul Gutierrez, basically took him out in a coup, but he still didn't win because people were so used to the McCarthyism, many people, that he actually was exiled as well. The guy who basically defeated the bad guy was actually exiled by the people who followed the first guy. For the next 4 years, democracy was attempted, and Stephen Anton was elected for a 5-year term as overseer. So now we're getting to overseer territory. Numbers dwindled to 239 people, which implies that this vault was massive, at least. Maybe 400 strong, let's say, dwindled to almost half their numbers. And people had concerns because, okay, we're at half our numbers, we're dying out. As a result of all these coups, the reactor maintained irreparable damage. People are just trying to maintain it to keep it going. And so what Anton had suggested was, let's go to the outside world. There's no choice. The second people heard that, and you've seen vault dwellers in this series, Chet is like, let's just go back. They revolted against the idea. He was ousted. Another revolution ensues to get rid of Aton. And he wins. But as a result, all the farming equipment is destroyed. The reactor is beyond repair. The numbers dwindle down to like slim pickings. The remaining people that survived this horrible vault history go to the outside world and try to make a life for themselves, essentially, after so long. The bottom line is this vault has a legendary history. People from the outside, from the wasteland, have heard of the legend of this vault, that this was a huge vault that is essentially the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. And so adventurers go in there thinking, oh, I finally found the Garden of Eden. After Aton left, you're going to explain this, Karina, because I don't know what this is. I didn't have time to look this up. It's a Cazador's nest.
Oh, yeah.
So when they finally find it, they have the luxury of being eaten by this Cazador's nest, essentially.
Yeah. Cazadors are tarantula hawks. They're hornets. They're giant hornets.
Tarantula hawks. They broke a Rachel's face.
Like the way radroaches are gigantic, it's that, but gigantic.
Wow.
They're horrible. They're in New Vegas mostly.
So it's like a condor with 8 legs. Talons, maybe? Or maybe...
It's basically a giant wasp. I mean, it just looks like a giant wasp. But yeah,
okay.
So tarantula hawks are wasps.
So it's a nest of giant wasps in a huge ass vault, essentially.
Yeah, they're pretty awful. They're one of the main horrible things that you can come across in the wasteland, at least in the Mojave. So, yeah.
So a whole nest of them would be impossible.
Yeah, they always show up in groups, so that's why they kill you so quickly.
So what was perceived as heaven is now hell.
Yeah.
However, in light of this fact, at some point during that part of the game's history, it's kind of like Shady Sands, somebody must have cleared out that nest. This group takes over that nest, whatever happened from that point forward, and make something. This is because we only get this little snippet of them doing vaulty things.
Yeah.
So some point somebody made it happen. An adventurer went into the vault and made it happen. And it has to have been an adventure because they're taking in people from the outside world, specifically intake.
Very astute of you to research that, because I didn't bother to research Vault 4 when I saw this happening. I was just like, yep, a vault.
I thought you might have, but then it occurred to me that maybe you didn't see the reflection of Vault 4 in but I know you've watched ahead, but maybe you didn't see the reflection of Vault 4.
My knowledge comes from what happens in the next episode. Obviously, we get to delve more into this vault. But you mentioned it's supposed to be the opposite of Vault 108. Do you want to guess what Vault 108 was?
No, you're going to tell me.
It's Gary. It's Gary Vault. Yeah, so apparently, it's
so
the
it's
Gary
anarchy,
Vault.
but one person.
Well,
multiple one persons.
Yeah, it's a little more complex. There's like a whole history of how that happened. But essentially, the 54th Gary was the downfall of everyone else in the vault.
The 54th Gary.
The 54th Gary.
Damn it, 54!
Oh, I know.
You ruined everything.
54.
That's interesting because in the original August Massacre, 54 people died.
Yeah, that's
interesting numbers coinciding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
108 was the total of all the numbers in the hatch and Lost. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. It added up to 108.
The Fibonacci sequence.
They had to hit the button every 108 minutes.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A bit of mathematics going on here.
The vaults seriously remind me of the hatches with the old style computers and everything.
And what came first? Fallout.
Fallout did, yeah.
Wasn't one of the creators of Westworld one of the creators of Lost? Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. Robert Orsi?
J.J. Abrams' company, Rad Robot, they developed Lost. Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan are who did Westworld, and they're doing this show.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's a love letter. I don't know. Who cares? But that's a very cool note.
Whatever.
They still follow the because Fallout came first. It's a love letter to maybe Fallout. Maybe it's the Fibonacci sequence.
Something like it.
Yeah.
There's also 108 stitches on a baseball, but that doesn't have anything to do.
9 times 12, isn't it?
There's also 108 beads in a rosary, but that doesn't have anything to do with anything either.
Everything has to do with everything. It's
108. 108 is a big number.
Exactly. 42.
Nice. Douglas Adams, right?
Yes.
There you go. That's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
He answered everything.
Yeah.
It's the meaning of life. Or that was Monty Python.
So going back to Vault 4 becoming this folk legend of heaven and it actually being hell, but here they are. It's a running vault. There's people in there. At this point, do you think, based on not this information, when you watched it at first, did you think they were in a good place or in a bad place?
I wasn't sure because of the way that they were sort of entrapped. They weren't invited in, they were captured. So I wasn't sure what to think. I was like, she's saying it's the best place in the world. We're in the best place in the world. We're in a vault. But her experience of a vault is abnormal to what a wastelander might experience in a vault, because vaults are repurposed often by raiders, by other factions, things like that. Vaults are sites of horrific experiments through a lot of them. So being in a vault isn't necessarily this Eden that she thinks it is. Now, of course, I binged the series, so I immediately found out what was happening. So
it was very difficult not to go to the next episode, because I'll mention
every
subsequent episode since the first one has been subsequently shorter. So 1 hour and 12 minutes to, I think it was an hour and 5 minutes to 55 minutes to the last one was notably short. It was like 49 minutes. This one was 44 minutes. 44, okay. Right, exactly, whatever, 45. 42. It's 42 minutes.
It's 42 minutes.
The next one is an hour and 5 minutes. So we're gonna eat well the next episode, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
We'll see.
Just the fact that she said it's the most wonderful place on Earth, I'm like, no. No, something's gonna be wrong here.
It's like when they kept saying we're the ones who live, but in the ones who live, they kept saying, "Oh, we're gonna beat them. We're gonna beat them. We're gonna beat them." Yeah. Makes me think we're not going to.
We can do it. We can do it if we're together. We can do it if we're together. You can do it if you're together.
I don't think this particular vault possibly has never captured another vault dweller.
That's what I was thinking of that too.
So they're probably used to dealing with enemies or wastelanders.
Well,
so
who's to say someone couldn't have stolen that uniform and she could have been a raider in a vault dweller uniform?
Well, sure, absolutely. I mean, I think they're going to figure out pretty quickly, just based on her personality and how she is in general.
I don't know.
I'm going to assume typically they use these people for mulch.
Or kind of like we're saying, not all fiends are chem addicts. You know?
Not all chem addicts are fiends.
You can't eat human flesh. Eating people makes you very, very sick.
I don't know.
It looks like a really nice, happy place, which leads me to believe that it's not.
That's kind of what I was going with, because had you not known about this information, we don't really know anything as a result of this information. All we know is that somebody actually beat that quest, found Vault 4 and made it to heaven, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Cleared the Cazadors out.
Which is weird. It's just somebody made that legend real.
I just want to know if they have potatoes.
Probably. They probably have potatoes.
Wow. I'm really curious.
I will say, upon them finding this hospital and it immediately having a Vault Tech symbol outside of it, I was like, that's very different. Yeah, I was like, that's interesting. But just as a gamer in general, hospitals in a game, or in this case, a show about a game, it's like a huge red flag for me, because hospitals are always like the worst locations in games. In Fallout, in Silent Hill, in The Last of Us, the worst things happen in hospitals. I don't know what it is about it, but like as soon as they were going in there, I was like, why would you go in there with no preparation, no weapons? You don't even have your suit, your T-60 armor or anything. You're just going in here unprepared.
Which is, by the way,
end badly.
The only time you probably fully sided with Maximus at the time. It's like, you're always kind of half siding with him. You're like, what is he going to do that makes me shake? No, Maximus is like, Lucy, you're an idiot. I'm with Maximus fully on this one.
There might be a first aid kit. There might also be super mutants, Lucy. You don't know.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The lights on the ceiling were especially suspicious. Silas and I got into a whole discussion about the lights. I'm like, why are they flashing like that?
Go.
They're almost hypnotic.
Go this way.
Yeah.
They're like pointing you down the hall. He's like, they're just flickering. I'm like, no, they're flickering in a pattern. They're
in a direction.
In a sequence like this.
Kind of like a game, maybe?
Right? Like
environmentally.
Go this way. Yeah. Go this way. And then on the door, medical supplies.
Medical supplies. Sure. I believe that for it's like 2 seconds.
Free tacos.
Yeah. Francisco says
I'd be dead.
The hospitals in Silent Hill are the worst.
Puppies.
Essentially.
Yes, they are.
Puppies inside.
I think I saw a cryolator.
A what?
It's essentially a flamethrower that shoots ice. What? I think that's what was in the wall box as they're entering Vault 32. After they get through the fields and everything, they're going into the common living space and people are settling in and they're like, this is kind of nice in here. There's
the Nuka-Cola on the TV trays, I think, as they're walking in or something.
Yeah, in that scene.
How inviting.
There's like a hallway in the background and there's a case that looks like break in case of fire or something
Instead
like that.
of the syringer we saw in 33.
I think it was a cryolator. I didn't pause it and zoom in or anything like that, but it reminded me of that because there's one in Vault 101 in Fallout 4 in the very beginning. You can't get to it right away because it's locked behind a master lock and you don't have any skills or lockpicks. So you can't get to it, but you can come back for it later. It made me wonder, are cryolators just what they use as their anti-fire measures? Like it's just anti-flamethrower, right? You throw some ice at it. I don't know. I thought it was interesting if it was that.
That's awesome.
I almost forgot to mention this one thing also, which is we saw another toaster. It was the same toaster, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Also, who cleaned up the vault?
Thank you. That's where I was gonna.
31. Because she says it. She says, in cooperation with Vault 31, we've repaired Vault 32.
Sure. That's what she says.
Well, you know what? Good point. Good point. But who else would it be?
I know. That's what I was thinking is like, I don't know who else would have cleaned it up. But definitely seems like the people of 33 weren't the ones that cleaned it up because who would want to go live there after seeing the state it was in?
Well, Norm and Chet were the only ones who saw the state that it was in.
Exactly.
And here's another point. This is how we know 33 had nothing to do with it. And it was intentionally covered up because, of course, the paint, all the things you basically noticed. Norm ends up in the very room he found out about Rose's Pip-Boy at the vault door, etc. Well, that terminal was working before and was not shot out. But when he gets there, of all the things that were fixed, the terminal was shot out and still not replaced.
Yes.
And why leave it there?
Oh, great question.
I understand destroying it so nobody can access these files. Makes perfect evil sense. But why leave it there? Why not just remove it?
You fell into my trap again.
Oh, shut up.
What was I saying from episodes prior? They're monitoring the vaults. They know Norm checked out Vault 32, probably. They know he at least went in.
Yeah.
We don't know what information he and Chet came out with. Let's assume there's all the monitoring equipment that 32 did find out, by the way. They know something's going on with 31. They found out something that 32 went crazy over. The experiments of the mice and the video that kept looping about the mice and overcrowding and all that with the Vault-Tec logo in the corner. They found out something. 31 is running the show. And this vault has the cryo thing. And they're hostile weapons then in 33. Because they had the syringer behind glass in the first episode, which Lucy takes. They raided the armory, which definitely does have more deadly weapons, which are locked away. But anyway, my whole point being, they're sending a message to Norman. Or at the very least saying, well, we haven't gotten around to fixing that yet because we don't want you to find out what happened here.
Yeah.
Basically.
It could be that they're trying to discredit anything that Norm might say to his fellow residents, like, oh, I found it on the computer in the overseer's office. Well, that computer smashed up. How is that possible, Norm? Are you lying to me? Are you making it up? That kind of thing.
Crazy fellow.
Yeah.
He was always disinterested in things.
The only thing he's got is that Chet was there. Chet saw that it was working, so he does have at least one backup. But Chet's kind of
go with the flow.
Chet's not really.
Yeah.
He's definitely from Vault 33.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is go back.
Guy.
All he wants to go do is go back to the way things were. Why screw the pooch? Things were so great, weren't they?
They were for
Chet too. Like he's clearly not that interested in being the new Bert, but he's just kind of going with it, right?
Oh, that's susness. Oh my god.
Yeah, he's just kind of letting it happen to him, and I'm like, dude, you clearly don't want this.
But it's funny. When we first saw Stephanie fighting back with her fork eye, we're like, yeah, badass. As long as she's on our team, badass. But now I'm not sure that she ever was on our team. And I said this sneakily in the beginning of this episode, but if Stephanie was from Vault 31 and Lucy is Hank's daughter, Norm is Hank's son, it would make sense that they would plan for somebody of Vault 33 to be friends with Lucy. So maybe that whole thing was manufactured. That friendship was manufactured.
Possibly.
Which makes me feel more sus about Stephanie, who I don't want to feel sus about, but things just happened in the last 2 episodes to make me think, oh boy.
Who is Stephanie?
Who is Stephanie?
Yeah. Who is she really?
I don't know.
She's one of 31's.
I'm not totally sus
you don't want to be.
Stuff. The only reason I'm not is because she got a fork to the eye. There were plenty of people in that battle who did not take the kind of damage that she did. So if she was on the inside, you'd think she would get away relatively unscathed without a fork to the eye.
Listen to me right now. For all the times you say, oh, I asked some dumb questions, you just said the most important thing that we could have said right now, because it does bring us back to the first episode. Who do you think the Raiders were? You think the Raiders were from Vault 31? No. They were meant to expose Vault 31, basically, Moldaver and all those Raiders. I don't know about the Raiders themselves, but Moldaver specifically. She takes Hank, who was from Vault 31.
Yeah.
So all this time we're thinking Moldaver's a bad
he was frozen.
Because he was in a cryo sleep, and they woke him up to be overseer.
They woke him up. They're like, all right, Hank, it's your time. Let's go, man.
Longest running overseer, by the way.
So he did a good job.
28 years, rather than some, it was 4 years here, not 8 years here maybe, but 28 years for 7 terms, basically.
So could we say that Moldaver was a vault dweller and then got out, and now she's coming back in to expose the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
That seems likely. Was she from Vault?
We don't know who she is yet.
Was she from Vault 32?
Could she have been? Maybe she was one of the people babysitting the cryo tanks in 31 and was like, I don't like this. And then she went over to 32 and was like, guess what, guys? There did Shady over there. And then like everyone in 32 went nuts.
I wanted to expand on my Betty Pearson theory, that Betty Pearson is Cooper Howard's wife. I loved the theory that one of you had, and I can't remember who it was, and it might have been you, Rachel, that Cooper Howard exists because he's trying to find his family, who actually made it into the vaults. Him getting divorced from his family would be the protection that at least they had, that they could be in the vaults. Or maybe he got the protection too, but in a different vault. I don't know, whatever, who cares? But his daughter got into a vault and he just wants to know what ended up happening to her, or has been looking for her the entire time. Not just his daughter, maybe his wife too. But I like the idea that somebody had said this, that Moldaver was his daughter.
Oh yeah, I said that.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad I got that right at least. But because I like to give attribution, because it's a great idea. Moldaver exposing the truth, being the vision of what his dad, first of all, imparted to her, that cowboys take it as they come, being this hero that she remembers from her youth. Maybe she got the impression from her end of what that could be, and she ended up living up to it. Maybe she had to do some horrible things just like her father, but not to the extent of her father taking the bloody mess perk. But still,
not that one.
But like between Cooper Howard existing in the world as a poltergeist, as a ghoul, technically by the namesake, literally, because he doesn't know what happened to his family and he exists like a ghoul, just roaming the earth, forever cursed to not know the fate of his family, let's say. Or maybe he's driven. Maybe he is finding bits and pieces of where his wife and daughter could be. It's just very interesting that you thought of this. I'm thinking that you're on to something, Rachel. That Moldaver is Janie.
I have decent ideas every now and then.
You took the savant perk. You just know things, but you don't know why you know them. You just
that does happen a lot. I think I'm part psychic. Last episode, I had commented on the people of 32, how they like died in mid-action. Something happened abruptly. One was literally choking the other one.
Pompeii almost. They just captured in time almost.
Yeah. And we saw it again in this episode. They were at 31's vault door. The one guy had a hammer or like a pickaxe 32. In his hand.
Oh, sorry.
No, they were at 31.
Yeah, the intervault door to 31. The
dwellers were in the middle of trying to get in there. The one guy had a pickaxe in his hand. The other one was like doing
chained
something
to
like
the door.
Like these people died instantly.
Like in the middle of their uprising.
Yes.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Why?
You're on fire right now, first of all. That's the only reason why I'm thinking of this. Okay, if we're to assume that 32 and 33 are experiments for 31, aka Enclave, hello, then, as in all experiments that fail, what do? Dispose of the test subjects. You release something in the atmosphere, and to shut things down, one of the bodies was immolated.
You hit the self-destruct button.
Exactly. And then all the gas comes in, kind of like when just before Maximus was dropped down in Vault 4's intake door.
Oh, yeah.
Trap door. Same thing. Something comes out from the ceiling. Now, it could be, because we all assumed when we saw this, they went crazy. But what if it's not that they went crazy? Maybe they were angry and they wanted to go against management at first. What if they introduced a psychotic, a berserk thing that makes them go crazy? It's not that simple.
Possible.
It's not that simple. She says it's possible. Shut up. But that makes more sense to me. If you can get them to kill themselves, it's evidence that they went crazy on their own. It makes sense for the viewer. It makes sense for people that eventually go in there and find out. For Norm,
anybody who goes in there and is like, they killed them.
Obviously.
They killed each other.
Which makes sense anyway, because you're trapped in a vault for how many centuries? Of course that could happen.
Yeah.
Did anybody watch Firefly, the movie Firefly?
Serenity?
Not the movie.
Yeah, Serenity. Yeah. What happened with the Lost Colony? They put the mind control drugs in the atmosphere, but a percentage of the population, it made them lie down and die because they were so docile, they didn't do anything. And the other percentage became the scourge of the
space, basically, right? What were they called again? Reapers? I forget.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made them go crazy. And so it had a completely divergent effect on that percentage of the population. And it kind of reminded me of that because there's also a vault that had spores or whatever in their air system that turned everyone into like a vegetable monster. And so it's definitely within the realm, literally, vegetable monster. like a plant creature.
This is a Tato monster.
It's a Tato monster.
Basically, like or celery.
I see she's already laughing, but she's muted. I didn't get the satisfaction.
Tato
monster. Anyway.
Tato monster.
No, but that's awesome, Rachel. I thought you were going to get the conclusion, but still, it's fine.
No, I'm good at asking the questions. I don't always have the answers, but
Let's clear them out. Press the button. Boom.
I can ask the right questions.
Okay.
In the past few episodes, we have been talking about Reg and Woody campaigning for Overseer. David, I think you specifically mentioned Betty doesn't want this job. She's not stepping up and doing it.
I did say that.
And then
but then I said she's like the sneaky overseer. She has the real power.
And I had agreed with you. Someone is going to be elected overseer, but really she's kind of doing all the things, right? Because it seems like she has had the experience. She's been there a while. The
conversation with
Norm seemed genuine. And then all of a sudden this episode, it's like, hey guys, I want to be your overseer. And they're like, yup, okay.
It does come out of nowhere. We kind of take it for granted because we focus on Woody and Reg.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, Betty has entered the chat. So, just to even go back further, did you think she was going to run in the race?
I did not. No.
That's interesting. Good call.
No. And I like that Reg specifically points out while Davy's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to vote for Betty. It's just all the excuses, whatever. And then Reg goes out of his way and he's like, that's all right, man. That's why we, vote privately. That's why we're in a private booth. And then I thought, well, yeah, that, and so that we can fix the ballots.
Yeah. Turns out.
it was Vaultec all along, aka Enclave, aka Robco, aka Yum Yum Brands.
General Atomics.
Here you go. Francisco says, Betty was like a kid in the candy store saying yes to being overseer.
Right.
Being the last light of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we? Rachel, look at this fire at the last throes of this episode. Fire. Just spitting fire. You'd never doubt yourself, you dumb bitch. Anyway.
Language.
It's forever burned.
Language.
Forever burned in your memory now. Hopefully. Shaming you into accepting a compliment.
I just have two things I want to bring up. The music, as always, is choice. I want to go download all of these songs and just sit and listen to them. When they were walking across the bridge, it was just musical, but it fit so perfectly.
But did you notice the three versions of Battle Hymn of the Republic? The first one comes and then the second one is when one flows right into the other, the two versions, and then there's one at the end. And then the third one, as Woody stares at his campaign posters when he's about to take it down. I put up 10 posters.
There's a person whose job is just to sit and listen to music and pick the stuff that goes perfectly with this show. I want this job. Every
episode I've written notes about the significance of the music to the scene, but I feel so bad because I know these episodes are long enough sometimes. I know we got really close to it was like 1 hour, 45 minutes for the second episode, but I feel so bad extending these episodes further. Because I'm not going to say the lyrics like we used to sometimes in the old shows. Yeah. So I always kind of just say, you know what, let's let people down. Because you can get those notes from Ko-fi or Patreon. So I add that flavor for people who want to go dig in further to my thought process. So if you really want it, you can get it from our pre-squawk insights. Actually, my pre-squawk insights. I made that very clear. This is the mind of madness that you're getting right now.
The other thing I wanted to say, and it's something that I'm surprised we really haven't touched on, are the end credit animations that they've been showing. They are
we have
fantastic. They're different every time, and they have something to do with the episode, which is so cool. It's like a really extended Fear the Walking Dead opener, right? Because remember, we'd sit and pick all the stuff out of the Fear the Walking Dead?
Yeah.
And that's
similar
what this
style,
is like.
Silhouettes.
Similar style. It's just more.
It's contributing to your theory about it being a Fear the Walking Dead fan.
Almost one of my favorite things is just watching the end credits and all the animations.
And what is the first thing you see in the end credit scene but it's a library book. And I think it's a copy. It could be, might not be, because we do see a different cover. It might be a copy of the New California Republic.
The California
book
Republic.
by Kate Williams, 2189. But yeah, the dates on the library card are 2189, 2190, it just keeps going until 2276. So in closing, this is a very interesting Easter egg, because then we find out that it must have happened. The nuke that took out Shady Sands had to have occurred sometime after 2276, which is the shorthand for Fallout 76, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Or no, Fallout
I don't know.
76? Well, that's just because it was in Virginia, maybe, I think, right? 1776?
It might have to do with the year. That's not something I'm familiar with because I don't play that game, but it's possible it's the year 2276. I don't know.
I would love to see what Francisco has to say, but it's fine. but it goes along the lines of our theory of it maybe happening in 2281, so it's in and around the same time.
Yeah, there's definitely been some discourse in the Fallout fandom about whether or not this show is breaking canon by saying, so what happened in the previous game doesn't matter, or the show is not canon because it's different. But so far, I haven't seen anything that suggests that all of it isn't canon. And from what I understand, Todd Howard wants all of it to be canon. That's why they didn't remake a previous story and they added to the current story. So I think what we're going to see is that it does all line up. Maybe people are reading too much into dates that they see on a library book or whatever, or on a billboard, and they're like, oh, well, then that proves it. But remember, these things are put into place and then posted up. And and then years go by and different events happen that are not recorded by the billboard or the library book or whatever. So I think that it probably all still works, but there's definitely been some discussion about how they don't think it does. I don't know the specifics of it because I can't remember exactly what happens at the end of New Vegas, because also the ending of that game is in question because there are lots of different ways to end the game. There are different paths that the player can take. So that could be a factor in it as well. Maybe
this show was a result of a particular ending for that game.
Right. That we don't know yet because we don't have all the information that we need. That could be revealed in later episodes, potentially. We'll see.
In that end credit scene, there's also a poster of a gun-toting hero in a red leather jacket on the door of the locker.
I noticed the poster, but I don't know what it is. If it's a reference to maybe a Cooper Howard film.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Potentially.
Maybe.
See, I think the main superhero comic that you can see is Grognak the Barbarian. So it didn't really seem like that.
Right.
So I don't think it was that, but it could have been anything else from pop culture in the Fallout universe.
These little things are kind of cool to watch. Because, everything in the end credit scene, almost everything in the end credit scene has some sort of significance to the games. Seeing the security robot in the, not last episode, but maybe the episode prior. I don't know if it was the Assaultron, what becomes the Assaultron later on. And then, of course, Mr. Handy, which we mentioned in the third episode end credit scene, which we ended up seeing in the fourth episode, and it being terrifying. Thank you, Matt Berry, for haunting my nightmares. I did want to mention one tiny thing you mentioned in the last episode. One of the vaults was a subway. And then I just finally realized that the vault windows do kind of look like subway windows. In a weird way. So, which is kind of why I was thinking, it doesn't seem all that weird that it would look like. You wouldn't notice it at first because the windows look the same, but it kind of goes in line. And being from a city that is all about subways, it didn't even register with me at first. Francisco says they have songs to make a lot of seasons on Fallout because there's so many layers to what they bring to the series. I will reiterate, at the end of this episode, because it was shorter, noticeably shorter. And I think that's by design, you sons of bitches, because the episodes are going to progressively shorter. It was really difficult to kind of go off what you guys were saying in the last one. You guys were all saying how you were struggling to not watch the next episode. And I felt that in this episode. I really, really did. Talk about my first impressions at the last moments of the episode.
I want to see more.
It was so hard. I was just like, 44 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it was.
I know.
I watched this episode today at 6 p.m. My first watch, I got done and I'm like, well, I couldn't watch the next one even if I wanted to.
Sorry, I'm going to be late. I got to watch episode 5. 6.
God. Francisco also says in the chat, they're not breaking any canon, in my opinion. It's not like they're ignoring anything in Fallout before Fallout 3, but they are retconning, which is not a bad thing so far. So maybe we can have that ending of Mr. House, which I glanced across on the internet briefly when I was looking for one particular thing. He says, I think there's a mix of subways and subway windows and trailers. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, what came first? Did subway windows come first? Or did we design subway windows in response to blast windows for nuclear fallout? It does make you think. Because if a nuke went off in the subway tunnels, you want to be protected. You don't want those windows to cave in, so you make them ovular.
Corners.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. It makes me think, actually.
Yeah.
This recorded episode is kind of shorter because I think we're going to be cutting off the ends like a meatloaf or something. But I think, I ended up with a lot more information than I thought it would, actually.
Yeah.
It's really annoying.
There's a lot packed into a very small window. I found myself taking more notes than I normally would, especially breaking down that one bridge scene. I feel like I was branching off so many different things I could talk about. Yeah, I was like, wait, pause. Let me find all of the notes I need to take.
That was me in episode 1. The first 15 minutes were, 8 minutes were just rough. I gave myself 3 hours for notes. I don't think I finished. So
there was a lot to unpack in the very first episode anyway, but
they dropped so much knowledge on us. Well, folks, if you like what you heard, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars and a sunset sarsaparilla is all we need to know that you love us. But tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Just remember to tell us after every episode. And if you really like what we're doing, be like Francisco. Just follow us at least on either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead. You don't have to buy us a coffee for 30 days of supported back content, which gives you access to the unedited episode recordings and a couple of other things like Discord access. And you don't have to join a membership tier for as little as $1 a month. However, if you decide to, and we really kind of need to because I just got some more upsetting news, we're down to 1 Survivors tier member right now. Our benefactor at RealRyanGM on X, which we're just going to get that out of the way now. Because there's only one Survivor tier member. What is a Survivor tier member? When you join that tier, you have the ability to join us on these episode breakdowns to lend your thoughts to these episodes with your camera, face, and mouth head. Or you could join the Whisperers tier to get dibs when we play Jackbox games. You could join us on stream. You also get 50% off in the merch store for either Survivors or Whisperers tier members. And when you join the Whisperers tier, you will get a free t-shirt at the end of 3 months. Survivors tier members don't have to wait for that t-shirt. You'll get them immediately after you sign on. Ko-fi and Patreon's where you go. Just follow us. You'll figure out the rest later. But I've been your host, David Cameo. And I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Karina Davey. You can reach on Instagram at CARINAE_D. Check her stuff out. I'm telling you guys. Not only is she a wealth of knowledge, but she's a prolific artist whose art you may want to consider purchasing and bringing home and taking home to your parents and saying, I want to marry
I have some of her art and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate all the
support. It's the same thing. I have the John and June print, but I have it on a blanket and I have the print.
I like that one. I wish it was more popular. It was my favorite ship ever.
Same.
That's what brought her into the universe, Sharon D.
John and June's why I'm here.
And Francisco gets the last words. Love you guys. It's a pleasure to support you guys and how much fun these streams are. I'm thinking about the teddy bear comment. The armor, the
teddy bear armor.
What did you call it? Teddy bear armor? Thanks,
the
Francisco.
robot teddy bear.
Thanks for being here for the last few episodes.
Yeah, robot teddy bear man.
Right. That's what you said. Robot teddy bear man. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Where's the song, Bridget? Take us out. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Teacher hit me with a ruler.
That one's different.
What a patriotic end to yet another wonderful breakdown of Amazon Prime's Fallout. You've reached the point of this podcast where we acknowledge the support of both our Survivors and Whisperers tier members, of which, at least for the former, there is only one left. As you may or may not know, the Survivors tier is entitled to primarily join us on our episode breakdowns on camera and mic, lending their thoughts to these episodes in real time. You also get a couple of perks that the other tiers do not get. One is receiving a t-shirt right away after signing up. The other is first dibs on our Jackbox Games live streams, also on camera and mic. Join us in the hilarity. But the Whispers tier members also receive similar perks, 50% off in the merch store, as well as the Survivors tier members. And they do get dibs on Jackbox Games live streams, and both receive special shout outs at the end of these episodes. So starting with the Survivors tier, we have our one and only, the last Soul Survivor at RealRyanGM on X. Let's hang there for a little while because he's the only one left. So he deserves a little special acknowledgement. On to our Whispers tier members, we have on Instagram at Judith.Morton. On X, we've got I Found Them Rick G. On Facebook, we have at Lois.Morton.54, at Kim.Rowley1, the number 1, at Sandy.D.Morrison. We've got Aiden Atkin, who you can find on ko-fi.com/Aiden Atkin. And I want to thank you again for making it this far into this episode, for loving what we're doing, for listening to these episodes with an open mind and heart. And if you have any further thoughts, consider rating us on ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead, wherever you're listening to this episode. It really, really does help this podcast out. Not only your ratings, but also your words of encouragement, of derision, but more than anything else, giving others a reason to consider listening to this podcast. It really, really helps us out. So without further ado, I cannot wait until you listen to the 6th episode. It's already been recorded, and I hope you continue to enjoy these breakdowns and future breakdowns, because you, me, and everyone that listens and participates, we are Squawking Dead.